Surprise! The Walking Dead is over. No, seriously, the latest issue, number 193, is the finale of the entire story, ending Robert Kirkman's zombie epic just shy of an impressive 200 installments. Shocked? Well, that's entirely by design, as it appears the writers have spent the past few months tinkering away at delivering the comic's biggest surprise death itself. Broken by The Hollywood Reporter and coming only 1 month after the shocking death of main protagonist Rick Grimes, the supersized issue 193 acts as an epilogue on Rick's story and the story of The Walking Dead as a whole, jumping decades into the future to present the lasting effects of the apocalypse and just how far civilization has redeveloped, made possible in no small part thanks to the efforts of Grimes and his merry band of survivors. It was classic The Walking Dead, but why has the story suddenly come to an end? Well, I'm Josh from WhatCulture.com, and this is why The Walking Dead just got cancelled. Number 7, playing with expectations. It can't be understated just how out of nowhere this sudden ending actually is. For one, both Kirkman and publisher Image Comics went to the trouble of releasing cover images for upcoming installments after 193, as is normal practice, to hide the fact that they were actually gearing up to end the entire story. In a way, that was actually genius though, as while fans were debating just who was bleeding on the cover of issue 195, a comic that doesn't even exist, with some speculating that it could be Negan, Kirkman and co were quietly tinkering away at the surprise finale away from watchful eyes. Even the fact that Rick Grimes, the hero of the entire story, died in the pages of 192 didn't clue in fans that the comic was in its endgame or even planning on winding down at all. For years now, Kirkman made it clear that Rick, just like anyone in the world of The Walking Dead, was fair game. Not only that, but the writer outright promised that the Grimes patriarch would die, positioning the inevitability as a when rather than an if. But that brings us to number 6, the Rick problem. Across the various arcs, the story of Rick has looked like it was leading to a grisly end a few times. All Out War was potentially the first big event where it could have been a genuine possibility, as the writers teased that the following arc would mark a brand new chapter for the comic as a whole. Covers for this next storyline highlighted a brand new band of survivors, and many assumed they could be Rick's replacements. After all, what better way to start off the next chapter than to hand the baton of main protagonist over to somebody brand new? That didn't happen, of course, but it did leave readers with a very different version of Rick. After having his leg broken and jumping forward in time, the hardened survivor adopted a more political, sagely leader role. In part, that was because he was physically weaker and frail, more vulnerable than ever before, and more likely to have his head on the chopping block at some point in the future. Number 5, this wasn't Rick's story, apparently. Rick's death in the end came during the events of 192. It wasn't heroic or an epic major last stand, but a quiet, messy, intimate exchange with Sebastian, who shot Rick in his own bed. After the comic dropped, Kirkman took to the page to explain how the shock death would affect the future of the series, writing, quote, "While this was always Rick's story thus far, as written about in the first issue, that doesn't mean he needs to be alive to be a presence in the series. This is the story of a world, not a man." Consequently, the message was loud and clear. Rick might be dead, but the story was never just, as Kirkman put it, about one man, but rather his legacy and lasting impact on the people he met along the way, which, after arriving at the Commonwealth, numbers over 50,000. The writing was on the wall. This was a story that would clearly continue. Not only had Kirkman teased who would be the next protagonist by writing in the pages of 192, quote, "Who will be the focus of this series? I'll give you one fudgety guess, fudgers." Only he didn't say fudge. A clear hint that Negan would be returning, and there was also dramatic gold to mine in the fallout of Rick's death and the effect it has on the rest of the characters, especially Carl. There was scope for this story to continue. However, it turns out the idea of this not only being Rick's story was all simply spin to keep The Walking Dead's biggest shock a surprise. Number 4, shock deaths are the biggest storytelling drive. Despite claims over the years that the plan had always been to make it to 300 issues, it turned out that the real endgame all along was to transform The Walking Dead itself as a comic book and story into Kirkman's biggest, most surprising death. Writing in the pages of the final issue, Kirkman elaborated on the decision to suddenly end the comic without warning, saying, quote, As a fan, I hate it when I realize I'm in the third act of a movie and the story is winding down. I hate that I can count commercial breaks and know I'm nearing the end of a TV show. I hate that you can feel when you're getting to the end of a book or a graphic novel." End quote. Interestingly, this comment does seemingly throw some indirect shade at the Walking Dead TV show, which has a habit of announcing major events before they actually happen. The exit of Rick Grimes is perhaps the biggest example, with the producers, actors, and writers getting out before the launch of Season 8 to promote Rick's final episodes. And yeah, while this was no doubt in part a response to reports leaking during production that actor Andrew Lincoln was indeed leaving the show after only a handful of upcoming episodes, it was also a classic case of AMC putting ratings above the story itself. The element of surprise was totally robbed from Rick's exit. Viewers had months to plan, to adjust to the idea of a show without the lead character, and AMC used that potential intrigue to get viewers engaged. They did something similar with the iconic Negan kill from the comic as well, replacing the sudden shock of the source material with a who dies cliffhanger, withholding the resolution and telling audiences exactly when it was coming, date and time. Considering how the comic just wrapped up then, it's clear Kirkman didn't want to go down the same route, but rather make his ending as surprising and as sharp as all of the other twists in the book. Serialized media today, from Game of Thrones to Westworld, has taken some flack for prioritizing shock twists and deaths that get people talking over conventional, coherent storytelling. But it's something the Walking Dead comic helped pioneer and has been its lifeblood for well over 15 years now. Number 3. The comic has already lived longer than anyone thought possible. So, that inherent element of surprise was why The Walking Dead's ending was so sudden. But why are the creators even ending it at all, specifically now? After all, this is the series that Kirkman loves to call the zombie movie that never ends, and there must have been some truth to his claims that the story is larger than one man, that it's more Carl's story than it is Rick's. So why is the narrative suddenly finished, well under the 300-issue mission statement? Well, for one, 16 years is a long time to work on a single project. The Walking Dead's monthly, sometimes more frequent issues demand a lot from the writers and artists. And even with Kirkman's clear passion for the project remaining strong, along with the continued success of both the comic and its cross-media spin-off, it's easy to see why he'd want to wind it down. For a book like The Walking Dead, a 15+ year run overseen by the same creatives is almost unprecedented. And if the original plan was indeed to extend it up to nearly 300 issues, it would have been a daunting task to commit to over 2 decades working on the same story. Number 2, where else could the story go? Speaking of the story, the decision to end it now could be down to the amount of story left to tell in the world of The Walking Dead, which, arguably, wasn't all that much. Sure, there's absolutely a way that Kirkman could have kept the narrative going without Rick, focusing on Carl's further development or even letting other characters stand on their own without one central figure to follow. But the current state of the story doesn't feel like there were many developments left unexplored. The narrative has come a long way from following a band of survivors across a classic post-apocalyptic landscape. At this point, years later, society is starting to rebuild, and some semblance of normality has indeed been restored. The original feral villains and morally grey ways our heroes survived gave way to a story more concerned with political intrigue, threats of civil war, and the drama that comes with living in the new version of civilization. Which focus you prefer is personal preference, but it's a testament to The Walking Dead's quality that it pushed the kind of stories that zombie fiction usually tackles into completely uncharted territory. Number 1, it cemented a legacy as the industry's most shocking comic. There have always been detractors who have argued that The Walking Dead, especially the TV show, utilizes the same formula of introducing new villains for the heroes to fight alongside a new base to protect, with some surprise deaths sprinkled in the middle. Rinse and repeat for nearly 200 issues. Deaths have still been surprising for sure, but readers have seen the pattern repeated too many times before, with the majority of the most beloved entities killed off already, and it's become a case of diminishing returns. There's only so many ways to keep the world feeling dangerous without death becoming a simple gimmick, or the inevitable end for everyone in the story. And after playing your trump card by killing the main hero, the only way to go bigger and surprise audiences from there on out was to kill the comic itself. So that's exactly what The Walking Dead had to do. It delivered the ultimate surprise by having its biggest shock not be an in-narrative twist, but a meta rug pull that fans will be left talking about for years to come, for better or worse. The franchise will shamble on in the countless TV shows and upcoming movie trilogy AMC has planned, but the comic book that took over the world is over, in the process cementing its legacy of delivering the most shocking serialized story in modern comics. So this is why The Walking Dead is over. It has been a kind of sad day and certainly a shocking one, but I want to know what you guys think down in the comments below. Was this a just end for the series and a satisfying one at that, or are you feeling a little bit disappointed and a little bit cheated that it's suddenly come out of nowhere? Either way, while you're down there, can you give us a like, share, subscribe, and head over to whatculture.com for more lists and news like this every single day. Even if you don't, I've been Josh. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you soon. Bye.